May 1845. Two ships leave England carrying 129 men. They are the most advanced vessels of their age. Iron-reinforced hulls built to take the pressure of ice. Steam engines lifted from railway locomotives, driving propellers that can be raised out of danger. Heating pipes running through the crew quarters. Libraries of more than 1,000 books. Food for 3 years, sealed in 8,000 tins. A technology so new that most of the world has never seen a tin of food. The commander is Sir John Franklin, 59 years old, a national figure. Their task is to find the Northwest Passage, the sea route over the top of North America. The finest navy on Earth has decided this is a solved problem. In July, whaling ships meet them in Baffin Bay. The crews wave. The two ships sail west into the ice. Not one of those 129 men is ever seen alive by a European again. And for the next 160 years, the only people who could tell you what happened to them would be the people England refused to listen to. This is Obscura Files. Every episode, one case. The facts, the theories, and a verdict. File number 6. Opened 1848 in the Canadian Arctic. The largest search operation of the 19th century and the most expensive failure. The mystery was never really where they went. It was what the answer cost the man who found it. The record of this expedition is almost entirely made of objects. There are no diaries, no survivors, one piece of paper. Here is the sequence, as the ground has given it up. The first winter, 1845 to 1846, was spent at a small island called Beachy. We know this because searchers found the campsite years later, and 3 graves. 3 young crewmen, buried under stone with proper headboards, dead before the expedition had even begun its real work. In the 1980s, those 3 bodies were exhumed. The permafrost had preserved them almost perfectly. Faces, eyes, clothing. Men who had been dead for 140 years, looking like men who had died the week before. The tissue carried extremely high levels of lead. Second winter. The ships pushed south and were caught in the ice off King William Island in September 1846, and the ice did not release them. Not that winter, not the next. Then the one document. In 1848, a search party found a metal cylinder in a stone cairn on the island's northwest coast. Inside was a standard printed Navy form filled in twice. The first entry, May 1847, is calm and administrative. Position, dates, the winter's progress, and the words, all well. The second entry is written around the edges of the same page, 11 months later, in different handwriting. By April 1848, the ships had been trapped for a year and a half. Franklin is dead. He died in June 1847, weeks after that first cheerful entry was written. 24 men in total are dead. The 105 survivors have abandoned both ships and are setting out on foot for a river hundreds of kilometers to the south. That is the last thing any of them wrote. Everything after it is bones and objects scattered down a coastline, and what the searchers found scattered there defies belief. Sledges dragged by hand, loaded with things no dying man needs: silverware, curtain rods, books, a writing desk, button polish. Men in the last stage of starvation, hauling the furniture of a gentleman's parlor across the ice. Then, in 1854, a Scottish surveyor named John Ray was working in the region, not searching for Franklin, simply mapping. Local Inuit told him about a group of white men who had starved to death years earlier, and they described where, and they described how. They had seen the camps. They sold him relics, cutlery, a medal, a piece of a uniform. The objects proved the story. Ray took the account back to England. It contained one detail he reported honestly, because it was true. At the end, the men had eaten each other. 3 questions have been argued for a century and a half. Let's take them in order. Question 1. What actually killed them? The famous answer is lead. 8,000 tins, sealed with lead solder, plus the ship's internal water systems, and those 3 bodies at Beechy Island loaded with it. Lead poisoning damages judgment and the nervous system, which would neatly explain the curtain rods on the sledges. But the evidence has moved. Later isotope work suggests much of that lead was absorbed across the men's whole lives, not just on the voyage. Sailors of that era were saturated in lead everywhere they went. The tins may have been a factor, not the factor. The stronger candidate is older and simpler. Scurvy. 3 years without fresh food, in extreme cold, doing extreme physical work. Scurvy reopens old wounds, loosens teeth, destroys the strength to walk, and then the will to. Add tuberculosis, add starvation, add the collapse of any group hauling sledges at -40, and you do not need a mystery poison. Question 2. What did they do after the note? For a long time, it was assumed everyone marched south together and died on the way. The Inuit account said otherwise. They described a ship still moving in the water further south after the abandonment. They described men on board it. In 2014, the wreck of the first ship was found, far south of where that note said it was left. In 2016, the second was located in a bay the Inuit had named for it, sitting upright and remarkably intact. So some of them went back. Having abandoned the ships, some part of their crew returned across the ice, remanned at least one vessel, and sailed her south, closer to escape than anyone believed for a century and a half. Both wrecks were found because searchers finally treated Inuit oral history as evidence rather than as folklore. Question 3, and this is the real one. What happened to John Ray? He came home with the truth and was destroyed for it. The report of cannibalism was intolerable to Victorian England, so England attacked the messenger and then the witnesses. Charles Dickens himself wrote publicly against Ray's account, dismissing the testimony of the Inuit and impugning them as a people. Ray was denied the honors that would have been automatic for anyone else. His reputation never recovered in his lifetime. The bones settled it eventually. Modern examination of remains from those camps found cut marks made by blades and breakage consistent with the extraction of marrow. The last stage, when there is nothing else left. Ray was right. He had been right the entire time. So here is the verdict. There is no single disaster to point at. The expedition was not sunk, not wrecked, not attacked. It was slowly closed in on over 3 years by ice that did not open, and every advantage the Royal Navy had brought became irrelevant. Steam engines are useless in ice that never gives way. 3 years of tinned food is a countdown, not a solution. 1,000 books do not feed anyone. What killed them was time, cold, hunger, and disease, in an order we will probably never establish precisely. But underneath that is the failure that actually decided it. They were starving in a place where people had been living successfully for thousands of years, the knowledge that would have kept most of them alive, how to hunt seal in winter, how to build shelter from snow, how to travel light, was walking around them the entire time in the hands of people the expedition regarded as beneath consultation. They dragged silverware across the ice instead. Speculation? The most human object in this whole file is that ship's record, all well, written in May 1847, weeks before the commander's death and a year before the survivors walked out onto the ice. Someone completed a routine form in good faith at the exact moment the expedition was already finished. He simply had no way of knowing it yet. And there is one more verdict to record: late. The Inuit accounts were accurate in almost every particular. The location, the sledges, the starvation, the final horror, the ship that moved south. They were correct for 160 years while being called liars, and the missing ships were only found when someone finally believed them. The Arctic did not hide these men. We refused the directions. File number 6 remains open. Next file. 2 men climb a hill in Brazil in the best suits, in tropical heat, wearing raincoats. They are found dead side by side, with no wounds, wearing masks cut from sheet lead, and a note giving them a schedule. Swallow the capsules. Wait for the signal. File number 7. The lead masks case. This is Obscura Files.